This story starts in a shopping mall where Tian, the protagonist, was shopping while listening to the news. In Z City, there were numerous cases of animal injuries, prompting people to avoid going out at night. Authorities were investigating the issue to prevent panic. Just then, an emergency report came in about a large number of people in X City infected by an unknown virus. The X media continued to report on the situation. Tian picked up canned food, thinking it would be safe as a stock food. As he queued to pay, he overheard a conversation between two ladies. One mentioned an elderly man from the Lee family who had been in good health but had recently had a sudden emergency and died on the spot. The second lady asked if it was due to the influenza, and the first confirmed it, adding that the old man hadn't even survived for 2 days. The second lady remarked that many people had recently suffered from the disease. They wondered if the government had identified the cause, as it seemed the world was becoming increasingly unsafe. And once again, Tian remembered all the things he had bought. Now he needed to refuel his car with diesel and head straight home to cook for Han, with the deer he had hunted earlier in the morning. He started driving, and on the way, he called a girl who asked him about their future together. Tian replied that he would find a job that would allow her to hold her head high among others. As she agreed, Tian made an excuse, saying he couldn't leave Han in an orphanage. The girl became frustrated and pointed out that Han wasn't Tian's blood-related sister, warning him not to talk about marriage if he planned to bring Han along. Tian insisted that Han was his little sister and a crucial part of his family. The girl asked why she should raise such a child as her own without any support, already having suffered enough with Tian. She gave him an ultimatum: if he wasn't going to take her seriously, they should break up. Tian agreed, and she hung up the call. Suddenly, an animal rushed towards his car, splattering blood on the vehicle. Tian stopped and remarked that the animal appeared to be a dog, but upon closer inspection, he realized it was a sheep. The sheep had a head injury and looked frightened. Tian was surprised that it was still alive despite its injury. The sheep then darted into the bushes. Tian decided to forget about the incident and felt it best not to report it to the traffic police. When he arrived home and started unloading his purchases, Han came out with their pets, calling for Tian. He asked her to slow down a bit. She commented on the amount of things he had brought and offered to help him carry them inside. He handed her a small pack of snacks. As they walked, she mentioned that she had completed all the tasks he had given her, such as feeding the livestock, changing the water, and watering the crops. Now she was hungry and looking forward to eating the stew Tian had made to feel better. He suggested making a carrot and lentil stew for her, to which she agreed, adding something more as she spoke. Tian turned around and saw Bai, the white dog, eating the crops, so he gently nudged him to stop. As they passed the buffaloes, one looked frightened with red eyes. Later, while they were cooking, Han mentioned that she had never seen a solar eclipse before and asked if it was true that the sky would completely darken like evening. They heard on the radio that the highly anticipated total solar eclipse was approaching soon. As Han enjoyed her meal, she complimented Tian on how delicious it was, noting that his cooking skills were improving alongside his hunting abilities. Tian explained to her about the eclipse, advising her to wear the special glasses he had given her to safely observe it without it getting too dark. Suddenly, a countdown began from 10. Han pointed outside and asked Tian what was happening. He was stunned to see a dark object obscuring the sun, plunging everything into darkness as if it were night. Han was shocked and started to feel cold. "Hey," the black dog began barking nervously. Even the radio signal became disrupted. Han, visibly frightened, urged Tian to look outside. As Tian opened the gate, he was greeted by a sudden blizzard, which seemed unusual in the middle of summer. He quickly told Han to go inside and assured her he would lock up the cattle and sheep. He instructed Bai to stay with Han, who urged him to hurry because of the cold. Tian reassured her and called to He to come along. Struggling against the harsh conditions, Tian realized they were in the midst of a blizzard. He asked He if he was all right, and as Tian looked up, he was shocked to see the sun shining brightly. He remarked on how strange it was, questioning what could be causing these sudden weather changes. He began barking in a particular direction, drawing Tian's attention to a buffalo with red, intimidating eyes. Tian felt a surge of fear at the sight. As the cow rushed to attack Tran, He darted in to fend off the cow. Tian, evading its charge, hurriedly searched for his compound bow nearby and found it resting on a log. The cow flung He aside, prompting Tian to take aim. Though apprehensive, he fired several arrows at its head. Despite hitting their mark, the cow continued its relentless advance towards Tian. Shocked by its resilience, Tian sensed something was amiss and knew he needed more time. A warning flashed before him: 0 ammunition left, with 3 live targets within range. Disregarding the warning, he readied his bow, only to find it empty. The cow knocked him backwards. He pulled Tian towards the house, barking urgently. Tian glanced back, realizing that if the cow had mutated, perhaps Han wasn't safe inside either. Inside, Bai's eyes turned red as he growled at Han. Han wondered what was wrong with Bai. Bai lunged at her, but Tian intervened just in time, kicking Bai away. He lifted Han and assured her he would take her to a safe place, urging her to hide indoors where it was safer. Tian explained that Bai was now dangerous, emphasizing that she must trust him and stay inside. As he escorted her out, Tian checked the screen again and confirmed that the number of living beings had increased to 4. After securing Han in the safe house and instructing her not to leave, Tian hurriedly locked the door. As the number of living bodies increased, Bai attacked Tian from behind, but Tian managed to lock Han inside before turning to face Bai. He rushed to Tian's aid, earning praise from him. Tian instructed He to hold Bai off while he dealt with the cow that was still pursuing him. Grabbing an axe, Tian positioned himself near a tree. The cow charged, but Tian dodged, causing its horn to impale the tree and trap it in place. As Tian moved to attack the cow, Bai suddenly lunged and bit into Tian's neck. Tian wondered if He had been killed. Blood dripped from Tian's mouth as he struggled to stop Bai's attack. Then he heard a strange sound. He saw numerous screens swirling around him and wondered what they were. The noise was overwhelming, but Tian focused on dealing with the two beasts to ensure Han's safety at least. Amidst the chaos, he noticed one screen displaying the message Apocalypse Survival Game Match Success. As the apocalyptic game loaded successfully, Tian became its player, finding himself in a poorly maintained manor at level 1. He received the Eye of Truth as a reward and his class was B. To upgrade to a fortress, he needed 800,000 points. Lying on the ground, he woke, wondering if he was still alive. His torn clothes and bloodstains remained, but he was shocked to see that his wounds had vanished. Puzzled, he wondered where Cow and Bai were. A strange sensation overcame him, and he realized that both the cow and Bai lay dead nearby. He questioned what had happened during his unconsciousness, knowing such damage couldn't be caused by a human. He felt a change within him, welcomed into the apocalypse survival game as his status activated. A surge of power washed over him, feeling as if a beam of light had struck him, igniting a rage within. Seeing the cow still alive, Tian leapt at it with his axe. He pushed aside thoughts of his recent experiences, pondering his newfound abilities, including wound healing and the strange explosion he had witnessed. As Tian processed the situation, it became increasingly clear that this was more than just a game. The system had fully loaded, and his shelter had been successfully established. Points had been allocated, beginners' rewards distributed, and players were urged to assess themselves. Tian wondered if this flood of information was directly implanted into his mind. He learned that the first phase of destruction had concluded, with the second phase scheduled to begin in 30 days. Natural disasters loomed, and the shelter stood as the last bastion of safety. Tian felt the weight of responsibility to not only survive, but also to fortify his shelter into the strongest fortress possible. The first phase had already poisoned the land humans relied upon for survival, leaving him anxious about what the second phase would bring. Examining Bai, Tian realized he had passed out. According to the information he gleaned, Bai and the others must have mutated after consuming radiation-contaminated plants. After securing Bai in a makeshift cage to prevent any harm, Tian tied him up tightly and turned his attention to checking on Han. Entering the safe house, he descended the stairs in darkness. Trying to switch on the lights, he discovered they hadn't been restored. His phone showed no signal, suggesting the communication system was also down, but the backup diesel generator provided some relief. Using the faint glow of a phoenix, Tian searched the room, wondering where Han was and why there was no movement. Spotting Han's legs, he hurried over and found her lying down. His system indicated that Han was sleeping peacefully. She woke at the sound of his approach and asked why he hadn't spread out the mattress instead of sleeping on the floor. She explained she had obediently waited for him, recalling a bright light and nothing more before asking if he was all right. He reassured her that everything was under control and there was no need to worry. Han inquired about Bai's whereabouts, to which Tian explained that Bai was injured and unavailable for the time being. He suggested she rest a while longer while he attended to matters. Han agreed and drifted back to sleep. As she slept, Tian pondered the absence of mutant domestic animals and wondered how this system differed from online games. Upon further investigation, he discovered a starting bonus that seemed somewhat familiar. However, it was disappointing as he had hoped for weapons or skills, but instead found that he needed another 999 points to start the game. Staring at the screen, he noticed a question mark in one corner and wondered about its significance. It appeared that the primary currency of this system was points, and he recalled the seed he had planted in the poisoned land. Realizing its high cost, he knew he couldn't afford it at the moment. He resolved to check the stockpile of supplies at home, knowing that those in direct contact with the ground had already been contaminated in various ways. As the network disconnected, Tian realized it might take some time to recover, and he doubted the situation outside was promising. Contemplating the polluted sources around him, He knew he had to address them soon. Looking outside, he opened a door in the safe house and found an array of guns neatly arranged. Starting the diesel generator, Tien loaded a pistol and placed a walkie-talkie near Han before leaving. Driving his car at high speed, he inadvertently attracted numerous mutated animals toward him and resolved to deal with them quickly. Suddenly, a military truck approached from behind, overtaking Tien and blocking his path. The truck's machine gun targeted Tien's car, threatening to open fire. As an army scout with a zoom scope overlooking Tien, he observed that the normally bustling Vokitoki road surface was raised. Tien suspected military forces were stationed nearby and sensed a crisis in the city. He wondered about Zhang Qing's whereabouts. The soldier warned Tien of the danger outside and advised him to return home. Through the Vokitoki, someone reported that Area B was under attack by mutant cats and urgently needed reinforcements. Tien explained to the soldier that he had left home due to lack of supplies and asked about the current city situation. The soldier directed him to the designated government supply point and emphasized the city's unsafe conditions, urging Tien to return home promptly. Tien agreed, and the soldier departed. As a military aircraft flew overhead, Tien contemplated the presence of mutant creatures. Despite his recent split with Zhonglin, he couldn't ignore the post-apocalyptic world and resolved to check on her during his journey. As he entered the city, Tien encountered widespread destruction. People spoke of another looting incident on XX Street, and a female body had been discovered at pond number XX. Driving through, Tien noticed only police cars and ambulances remained active. He witnessed two men hurriedly loading an injured woman into an ambulance. She was on the brink of shock from severe blood loss. Another paramedic mentioned another case of lung damage due to food poisoning, urging readiness to administer an adrenaline shot. They discussed the shortage of cardiac stimulants due to high patient volumes, many infected by the same illness. Nearby, a distraught woman begged her infected husband not to fall asleep. They were almost at the hospital. He lamented the lack of available beds and the overwhelmed emergency hotline. Tien concluded that the healthcare system was struggling to cope, exacerbated by the effects of radiation leaks from the nearby plants. Tien wondered if he could manage to get his hands on enough supplies to successfully survive the game. The police were instructing citizens that the location was a government-designated emergency supply procurement site. They emphasized the need for everyone to follow the rules, form orderly queues, and avoid rushing. Each person had a purchase limit 5 jins of rice, 5 jins of flour, and 1 jin of vegetables, verified with a valid ID. Arguments erupted as people fought over their place in line. One person insisted they had been waiting for 5 hours and deserved to be served first, while another claimed the spot was originally theirs before a restroom break. Tensions escalated, especially when someone purported to be the general manager of a local corporation, leading to confrontations with others in line. Some were even forcibly removed. Meanwhile, on the fringes, a young girl cried to her mother for food. Tien witnessed 2 people fighting over a scarce resource, each claiming they had reached it first, while a frantic rush for supplies continued among the crowd. As Tien contemplated his girlfriend's rented apartment just around the corner, a speeding car narrowly missed him as he was about to turn. The car screeched to a halt, and a man emerged, knocking on Tien's window to inquire if he had come from the procurement site and what he was looking for. He had noticed Tien wandering around the department store market. The man tried to offer various fruits and vegetables, watermelon, cucumber, pumpkin, tomatoes, but Tien challenged him, saying he would only buy if the man dared to take a bite first. The man hesitated, asking why Tien didn't trust him and insisting that he hadn't seen anything to buy himself. Tien, frustrated, told him to leave. The man questioned why Tien was being confrontational, asserting he was a law-abiding citizen. Tien then showed a gun, causing the man to recoil in fear, urging Tien to talk things out and emphasizing his compliance with the law. Tien sternly warned the man that if he caught him conducting such heartless business again, he wouldn't hesitate to shoot him with no repercussions. The man agreed nervously, retrieving his things and reflecting on the tough spot he found himself in. He quickly got into his car and left. Tien proceeded to his girlfriend's apartment building. Climbing the stairs, he arrived at Zhang's door and knocked, calling out to her. With no answer, he began to worry if she was even home. Retrieving the spare key from under the doormat, he unlocked the door and entered. Inside, Tien was shocked to find the typically neat room in disarray. Contaminated fruits and medicine boxes were scattered around. Among them, he recognized Tianrun's antibiotics, a product known for its terrible reputation from a local pharmaceutical company. He wondered why Zhang had bought such things. Noticing no signs of blood or accidental poisoning, Tien realized the place had been ransacked, but not in Zhang's usual meticulous manner. There were no signs of forced entry either. Everything seemed deliberately disturbed. In the chaotic world outside, Tien pondered where she could possibly have gone. The scene shifts to the outskirts of the city, where a poorly managed manor serves as a makeshift guest house. It's rated at level 1 shelter grade, offering basic amenities. The level 1 shelter skill reward is the Eye of Truth, allowing the host to see detailed information about objects and creatures. Additionally, the privileges include a remote control shelter system that provides real-time updates on shelter status and inventory, accessible even when the player is away. The area spans 30 MU, suitable for fishing, animal husbandry, planting, and construction. Reflecting on his situation, Tien realizes he's currently at a loss. He resides in a dilapidated level 1 greenhouse and resolves to earn enough points to upgrade farm equipment without neglecting anti-radiation measures. As he toils in the fields, Han arrives and excitedly announces that the seeds have sprouted. Tien, Han, and He gather to witness the successful growth, bringing joy to Han. Tien observed on the screens that the tomato seeds had been successfully planted and would mature in 48 hours. He was pleased with the progress, noting that the anti-radiation grade seeds were performing as expected, maturing quickly. With more points, he and Han could certainly survive in the post-apocalyptic world. Han expressed her initial doubts about the seeds, thinking they had all withered, but she credited Tien for their success. Tien confidently remarked that he always found a way, reminding Han of the rules he had set for her to follow. She affirmed her understanding and vowed not to be underestimated. Han reiterated the rules: only consume food approved by Tien, not leave the farm without permission, report any unusual animals, and keep an eye on He to prevent him from eating indiscriminately. Tien instructed He to listen as well. Recognizing that the anti-radiation crops were ripe, Tien resolved to harvest them promptly. He discovered that the harvest was bountiful, especially with the radiation-resistant tomatoes proving to be nutritious. Long-term consumption promised to enhance overall health, with a storage life of 30 days. Tien pondered whether they could also improve physical fitness and eagerly tasted one. Instantly, he felt a comforting warmth spread throughout his body, alleviating the fatigue from days of hard work. In this food-scarce post-apocalyptic world, the upgraded crops not only provided sustenance, but also seemed to offer attribute bonuses. Tien mused over the idea of becoming a full-fledged farm owner within this system. Unlocking permissions, purchasing from the mall, and upgrading shelters all relied on accumulating points, which were obtained primarily through the exchange system. This system facilitated the recycling of crops, livestock meat, and minerals, each graded differently and priced accordingly, were the Supreme God tier. Exchanged for the highest points, these were top-tier crops, God-tier powerful crops that fetched significant points. Ancient medical-grade specialized crops known for their medicinal properties. Anti-radiation grade crops specifically designed to thrive in radiation-affected environments. Tien realized that mastering this exchange system would be crucial for their survival and growth in the harsh new world they found themselves in. Tien learned about the point system for different grades of crops were level 1, anti-radiation grade crops 1 kilga or year 1 point. Level 2, ancient medical grade crops 1 kiloliter 100 points. Level 3, God tier powerful crops 1 kiloliter 1000 points. Level 4, Supreme God tier enhanced crops 1 kiloliter 100,000 points. This exchange system provided a comprehensive service from supply and sales to recycling, making it a vital tool for transforming the farm into a top-tier military base if enough points were accumulated. Tien eagerly anticipated this transformation. Reflecting on the anti-radiation grade crops, Tien considered the potential of the 3 higher grades, each promising even more significant effects. Excited, he decided to inspect the harvest of the ancient medicinal grade crops. Observing the carrots, he confirmed their 10% maturity rate as expected for ancient medicinal grade crops. Further investigation revealed that these carrots were at 100% maturity. They were capable of clearing all negative effects, such as poison, illness, and irreversible damage caused by negative effects. Remarkably, they could be stored indefinitely. Tien recognized the immense potential these crops held for their survival and future endeavors in the challenging world they now navigated. Tien marveled at the newfound security of having the ancient medicinal grade crops, knowing they no longer needed to worry about medical treatment. Turning his attention to the recycling interface, he decided to sell 70% of the harvested crops for points, and kept the remaining 30% as reserves in his backpack. Confirming the recycling of 200 kilos of radiation-resistant crops, Tien received 2,000 points and found that 3 ancient medicinal grade crops were stored in the warehouse. Pleased with the outcome, he now had 30 gins of anti-radiation grade crops safely stored. To his surprise, Tien was congratulated for completing his first recycling task and achieved the title of Master of Recycling, earning a reward, a smart working robot of the agricultural type. As the robot appeared in his palm and waved, Tien couldn't help but feel skeptical about its usefulness, given its small size. He wondered about the achievement system, suspecting it might lead to more rewards and useful items. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that the robot was staring at him in an oddly unsettling way. As the robot swiftly began cutting the crops, Tien was astonished, wondering how it seemed to anticipate his thoughts. Could it be that his consciousness was somehow linked to the system, enabling direct commands to the robot from his mind? He marveled at its capabilities, realizing even a farming robot could be so advanced. Thoughts of earning enough points to exchange for a combat robot crossed his mind, considering how it could ensure Han's safety conveniently. Excited by their successful crop germination, Tien called Han for a meal, asking her to stop watching cartoons. They enjoyed big chicken legs together that day, celebrating their agricultural success. Han, though happy, reminded Tien of their need to be more frugal with food. Hei, their companion, also eagerly joined in the meal. Tien assured Han they could resume planting and use some of their stored food. He then warned her that if anyone discovered their food supplies, she would be forbidden from eating for 3 days. Han agreed, promising to keep their provisions secret. Tien suggested they eat, knowing Han must be tired of instant noodles after 2 days. He gave the first chicken leg to Hei, thanking him for protecting both Tien and Han. Han affectionately hugged Hei, calling him the best, before letting him go and wondering how Bai was feeling. Tien reassured her that Bai was still recovering from serious injuries and wouldn't be able to see her for a while, but promised they would play together once he was better. Han agreed and promised not to disturb Bai in the attic. Suddenly, Tien noticed a warning indicating someone was attempting to invade. He quickly accessed the monitoring screen and discovered the intruder was an unarmed 42-year-old male with a threat level of 3. To his surprise, he realized it was Uncle Nan. Tien wondered how Nan had ended up there under these circumstances. Tien stepped outside and approached Nan, questioning why he had come. Nan, smoking a cigarette, exhaled slowly before acknowledging Tien as boss. He explained his dire situation, requesting help and inquiring if Tien's farm had any surplus food. Nan had no other options. His home had been ransacked, his stored food stolen, and market prices were exorbitant due to shortages. Tien apologized, revealing that his own food stores had been depleted, worsened by a recent crop failure due to mutation. Despite this, Tien offered what little rations he could spare, expressing gratitude to Nan for looking after his family. Nan, crestfallen, admitted he had already approached many relatives, all unable to assist him. Tien then handed Nan a pack of cup noodles, urging him to explore other options first. Nan thanked him profusely, to which Tien wished him luck. Nan, resigned to their unfortunate circumstances, departed. Tien estimated that the food would last Nan about 5 days, considering it wasn't much. In uncertain times like these, human intentions were unpredictable, prompting Tien to stay cautious. He decided to check on Nan that night, realizing he didn't need the common vegetables stored in the freezer. At nightfall, Tien, accompanied by Han, quietly approached Nan's house, each bringing their own snacks. Suddenly, they heard Xiao scream. Nan hushed Tien, warning him not to startle Xiao. Xiao continued coughing up blood, his condition worsening by the moment. Emotionally distraught, Nan questioned why Xiao's condition was deteriorating instead of improving. As Xiao continued to cough up blood, Tien and Han peered through the window, Han visibly frightened by the sight. Tien reassured her that everything would be fine, urging her not to look. Reflecting on Xiao's symptoms, Tien suspected Xiao had accidentally consumed irradiated vegetables, explaining the rapid deterioration. However, Tien questioned if Xiao, being the best candidate for experimentation, would survive this ordeal. Ultimately, Xiao's fate would hinge on luck. The window glass shattered as a pouch flew into Nan's house, startling both him and Xiao. Nan grew furious, demanding to know who threw it. Xiao urged caution and suggested they inspect the package. Reluctantly, Nan agreed, instructing Xiao to stay put while he investigated. Upon opening the pouch, Nan was shocked to find fresh vegetables and food inside. Overcome with emotion, Xiao expressed his desire to survive, willing to try anything even if it meant lying about his condition. Nan broke down, admitting even the hospital couldn't help Xiao, but he couldn't bear to watch him suffer without trying. Determined, Nan convinced Xiao to eat the food, urging him to chew carefully. Xiao screamed and coughed violently for a moment before suddenly stopping. Nan rejoiced at Xiao's apparent improvement. Meanwhile, Tien noticed a streetlight flickering back to life, indicating the return of electricity and potentially phone signal. He immediately called his girlfriend, Zhang, but she didn't answer despite the phone ringing. The scene shifted to a moving car where several men sat, one of their phones ringing. They pondered whose phone it was until the owner recognized it as Zhang's, suggesting they turn it off now that the signal was restored. One of them inquired about their food stash, relieved they had enough for a month. Pleased with their decision to follow their leader, they discussed their motives. The largest man silenced their questioning, emphasizing the importance of money and action. They all agreed. After the incident at Nan's house, Tian and Han hurried away in their car. Han remarked on the miraculous change she witnessed in Xiao, how he had been vomiting blood before eating the carrot, but soon recovered, his pallor shifting from gray to blue. Tian noted Han's vivid descriptions, reminiscent of her love for animations. Suddenly, an animal attacked their car from above. Tian spotted it, a monkey with menacing claws peering through the window. He instructed Han to stay calm and hold tight. She nodded fearfully, complying with his request. Tian maneuvered the car in a serpentine motion, attempting to dislodge the monkey. He then instructed Han to duck her head, which she did obediently. Despite their efforts, the monkey persisted and ended up in front of the car. Thinking quickly, Tian swerved the vehicle, causing the monkey to collide with a rock. Drawing his gun, Tian shot the monkey, ensuring it posed no further threat. Exiting the car to inspect, Tian discovered a pool of blood where the monkey had fallen. Amongst the blood, he found a coded message. Perplexed, he wondered where it could have come from, as there were no nearby breeding farms or zoos. Tian's thoughts returned to the dire state of the city as he drove home. He instructed Han to relax and watch her animation, explaining that he had some matters to attend to. Agreeing, she departed, leaving Tian to confront Bai, still in his altered state. Donning gloves, Tian contemplated whether the ancient medicinal carrot could reverse the effects of radiation on Bai and restore his consciousness. Tentatively, he fed the carrot to Bai, hoping for a positive outcome. Bai growled loudly in response. Meanwhile, Han, engrossed in her cartoon, heard unsettling noises and grew concerned about Tian's prolonged absence. Rushing to find him, she entered the room where Tian and Bai were. Wanting to play a prank, she tapped Tian on the back, startling him. Relieved to see her, Tian asked if it was her. Han confirmed and teased him about being scared. However, their attention soon turned to Bai, lying motionless with blood around him. Han was overcome with emotion, collapsing in despair. Tian urged her to compose herself as she sobbed, questioning why they couldn't save Bai with the carrots that had saved Xiao. Tian sadly explained that the carrots couldn't reverse mutations like Bai's. Han continued crying, expressing her deep sorrow at the prospect of Bai dying. The next day, they performed the final rites for Bai and bid him a solemn farewell. Han remained silent throughout. Tian gently took her hand, suggesting they return indoors as it was growing late. Despite her absorbed state in the cartoon, Tian interrupted to invite her for dinner, preparing her favorite dish. Han didn't respond verbally but indicated she wanted him to stay with her in the house, to which Tian agreed. Later, Tian sat outside and noticed a screen announcement about radiation-resistant crops nearing maturity, prompting him to prepare for their harvest. Soon, they harvested approximately 500 kilo of radiation-resistant crops and 10 kilo of ancient medicinal-grade crops. A small robot returned to Tian, confirming successful points redemption. As a result, his level 1 dilapidated greenhouse upgraded to a level 2 ordinary house. However, Tian received a warning that his defense shelter was only rated level 3, capable of repelling small wild animals, but risky against larger threats. It strongly advised establishing a defense system promptly. Tian considered his top priority to ensure the safety of the farm. With current crop levels yielding high power, he decided to postpone expanding production. Upgrading the wall reinforcements from level 1 to 2 and successfully purchasing the perimeter power grid elevated his security readiness to level 1. Aware of the remaining points, he prioritized acquiring mechanical guards for Han's safety. He spotted a guard priced at 3,500 points and calculated that selling the grains stored in the warehouse would nearly cover the cost. Confident in his ability to earn more points if needed, Tian proceeded with the purchase of a level 1 hummingbird and a level 2 hound. Observing the hummingbird in action, Tian marveled at its precision as it efficiently dispatched fallen leaves with bullets. With the air patrol spinner now available, Tian decided it was time to test the ground combat capabilities, directing the hound to demolish a rock. The hound utilized its beam attack to effortlessly demolish the rock, leaving Tian visibly relieved by the successful demonstration. He then brought Han over to meet the hound, explaining that it would accompany her and provide protection. Tian suggested naming it Bai, which deeply moved Han. Meanwhile, in a city building, a man reported to Liang Hani that they had successfully cleared up the out-of-control samples, with only the data from number 7 steadily increasing. He noted that it could now penetrate 5mm thick steel plates effortlessly. Liang inquired about the situation on the other side. The man replied that Ren was displeased with their failure to procure medical equipment donations, which could complicate matters if reported to the head office. Seated calmly, Liang dismissed Ren's concerns, referring to her as just a girl with limited influence. He assured the man that their activities were conducted discreetly. making it difficult for Ren to launch a successful investigation without knowing where to start. The man agreed, mentioning that the head office remained unaware of their operations. Liang instructed him to keep a close watch on Ren to prevent her from disrupting their business. With that, Liang left the room, contemplating the potential for a significant treasure awaiting discovery. The scene shifts to Ren, who was walking angrily, asking where Liang was. The lady apologized and said that Liang wasn't in the company at that time. Ren was making things very difficult for them, so he should wait. Just as Ren opened a door and asked Liang what was going on in his head, he mentioned that now the entire southern region's medical system was paralyzed. As a medical company, Liang should lead his staff to actively cooperate with the hospital, donate equipment and medicines, instead of being busy with animal experiments. Liang replied that it was the general manager's office and it wasn't appropriate for her to barge in like that. He was a businessman, and his purpose was to profit from everything. He didn't believe that day's medical treatments could do anything for that worldwide disease. Ren asked what disease it was. Liang replied that she was also a shareholder in the company and enjoyed dividends. Could she imagine how rewarding it would be if they could develop a solution? Ren asked if Liang's research had made any progress, noting that even the Yanhuan federal government hadn't developed any effective drugs yet. She mentioned that she would have to visit his lab. Liang replied that he was kidding, emphasizing that such developments couldn't happen so quickly. He suggested that if she could cooperate more and invest more manpower in the project, progress would be faster. Ren said that she would go to the lab later to check on the progress and ensure she could cooperate effectively with the project. Liang assured her she was welcome and had arranged personal escorts. Ren agreed to go. Liang saw her out. As Ren walked, a boy escorted her and mentioned that the technical team had found her time in the office too short to conduct a thorough scan, and accessing the secret laboratory entrance was likely not feasible at the moment. Ren commented that it was an old issue and asked if the boy had obtained a statement from the captured scientist. The boy denied this, explaining that they were blindfolded each time they entered and exited, but they did have key cards. Ren expressed her appreciation for the information. Then she gave a card and wondered where else could that be other than those places, and if the most dangerous place could also be the safest. She entered the laboratory and a man introduced himself as 2Z, in charge of accompanying and explaining everything to Ren. He offered to show her around, and Ren agreed, saying, "Let's go and check on the progress of the experimental subjects first." 2Z led her to see Subject 7, the only one in the experimental batch that hadn't gone berserk. Its power had increased tenfold, though it remained unstable and showed signs of aggressiveness, though not as brainlessly bloodthirsty as the failures. Suddenly, another man approached 2Z with bad news and whispered in his ear. 2Z was visibly shocked. The man explained they didn't know what had happened and asked 2Z to come and check. 2Z asked how this could have occurred. 2Z then apologized to Ren, explaining there was an emergency and he couldn't continue to accompany her. He assured her that a colleague would take over. Ren replied that it was fine, as it was just a routine check, and she would walk around for a while before leaving. The man expressed fear, stating that their actions were against the rules. Ren replied confidently, "We're all under surveillance coverage, so what is there to worry about? Just hurry, and don't delay. It seems important." 2Z agreed and assured her they would ensure her safety at all times before they departed. Ren was on a call with a boy through earbuds, telling him it was time to act. The boy was seated in a room with his laptop, confirming that the surveillance was covered. Ren instructed him to scan the place for their hideout. The boy asked her to check the northeast corner for a hollow in the wall or something that could be pressed. She found it and pressed it. The boy informed her she had 30 minutes. Agreeing, Ren entered through the open door and discovered numerous human bodies in jars. The boy asked for her assessment. She replied grimly, "It's worse than we predicted." The boy asked if he should contact the head officer to intervene. She declined, asking him to wait. As she examined further, she saw a mermaid and asked Ren if she recognized the name, revealing it was Zhang, Tian's girlfriend. The scene shifts to Tian, who found that his radiation-resistant grade corn was ripe for picking. Han was delighted to see it. Tian asked her to come and help him finish the work early for dinner. She eagerly agreed, taking one and expressing her desire to eat grilled corn later. Tian asked if she was already hungry. She replied that she was too hungry to just pick corn. He instructed her to gather some dry wood while he prepared grilled corn with butter. She was thrilled to hear that. While cooking, Han sat nearby and asked jokingly what would happen if she kept eating like that and turned into a fat pig. Tian thought that her appetite had exceeded his own recently. He explained that the special crop could enhance their physical fitness, and as her physique developed, her nutritional needs would increase. Since she was still growing, eating more wouldn't cause her to gain weight. She agreed and began eating the corn. Tian watched her profile and thought that after eating the radiation-resistant vegetables for a few days, both his and Han's physical condition had improved significantly. He joked that even if she kept eating like that, she wouldn't turn into King Kong Barbie, imagining how she might look and laughing at the thought. Han commented that the grilled corn was delicious. Tien promised to make her a spicy one next. He considered that with their shelter, even if Han's appetite grew comparable to Luffy's in the future, they could still afford it. Hearing a visitor, he wondered who would be visiting at such a time. Checking, he found it was Xiao with a bag. Tien wondered if it was the food he had given Xiao and what he was doing there. Tien approached Xiao and asked what brought him there. Xiao explained that Tien had given his family some instant noodles the other day, and his father insisted on returning the favor by sending some food to Tien's family, which Xiao had brought over. Tien reassured him it was fine, thinking he had helped the right person. Curious, Tien asked Xiao where he had found all the food. Xiao admitted he had found it in his yard, speculating it might have been quietly sent by a relative or someone who snuck it in. Xiao wanted to repay Tien's kindness and also had something to ask him. Tien encouraged Xiao to ask his question. Xiao mentioned he had heard about a new grain shopping center opening on the outskirts of the southern side that still had a lot of stock. He wanted to borrow Tien's truck to go and buy some. Tien agreed, and Xiao added that he didn't have a driver's license. The shopping center was in a remote location not too far away. Tien understood that Xiao was asking him to accompany him there. Xiao assured Tien that it wouldn't take him long, making a request. Tien thought about how he had been stuck on the farm recently and had planned to visit the shopping center in a couple of days to check on things. Since the opportunity came early, he decided to go with Xiao. With the mechanical guards at home, he felt relieved about Han's security. Besides, Bai's combat abilities could handle even a small group if needed. Tien agreed, mentioning they were old acquaintances, but he needed to be back before noon to cook for Han. Xiao apologized for causing trouble. Tien asked him to wait there while he went to get the truck. Inside, Tien instructed Han to stay home and not to open the door for anyone. She reassured him not to worry and praised Bai's capabilities. Tien asked how Bai had become so capable. She explained it was an upgraded version and demonstrated how it easily smashed through big rocks with a bam bam. Tien asked if that was so, and reminded Han that she could only use Bai in emergencies in the future, as it could be dangerous otherwise. She agreed, saying she wouldn't blow up rocks anymore. Tien affectionately ruffled her hair, promising that he and Xiao would go shopping and bring back candy for her. Curious, she asked if Xiao was there and expressed a desire to greet him. Tien playfully pinched her cheek and asked if she wanted to show off Bai to others. She insisted she was 6 years old now and not a child anymore, feeling suffocated that no one except Tien talked to her that way. Tien agreed and took Han with him in the truck. Outside, Han greeted Xiao and tried to tell him about Bai, but Tien stopped her, telling her to get out of the car and let Xiao sit there so they could leave early and return in time for him to cook for her. As they left, Han complained that Tien was being mean and hadn't let her finish greeting Xiao. She hurried inside to forget about it and watch cartoons. While traveling, Tien thought that Han could be naive sometimes, expecting she would say something like that. After a while, Xiao asked Tien if it was okay for Han to be home alone. He expressed concern about the current chaotic world and feared the farm might be targeted by bad guys, putting her in danger. Tien scoffed, questioning who would bother with his shabby farm that had no money or food, and reminded Xiao that Han was only 6 years old. Even if she had a self-defense weapon, she wouldn't be able to use it. He thought there was no safer place for her than the farm right now. Xiao asked if Tien had any self-defense tools for Han. Tien replied that he had electrified the farm gate so no one could break in, reassuring Xiao not to worry about it. Xiao expressed relief and then took out his phone to text someone. Tien noticed, and Xiao quickly put his phone back in his pocket, explaining he was worried he didn't have enough money and had borrowed some from friends. The scene shifted to Han, who was watching cartoons excitedly. She exclaimed that they should use the Rainbow Warriors, suggesting Lemon Yellow Super Evolution Golden Yellow, and noted Xiao could change his color too. She hugged her toy, Hei, and asked if Xiao could be a member of the Rainbow Warriors. Hei looked confused. Han joked that last time she and Tien had seen Xiao, he was green with greed, but now he was red, which she found funny. Tien gave some money to Xiao, who was confused to see that. Tien explained that he didn't have much money either, so Xiao could take it for now. Xiao declined, insisting that Tien had already helped his family a lot, and he couldn't accept any money. Tien insisted, telling Xiao to stop talking nonsense and focus on driving. Xiao acted grateful for Tien's help and promised to repay his kindness. As they drove, Tien realized they needed to go straight for 500 meters, then turn right 300 meters ahead. Another 200 meters ahead, they would reach a fork in the road, and 100 meters beyond that, they needed to turn right. Xiao seemed worried. Just as Tien was about to turn right, Xiao moved the steering wheel to the left, claiming the road to the right was closed and they should go left instead. Tien felt something was off and shouted that it wasn't true, as he often traveled that road. It was the main road in the township and couldn't be closed without a major natural disaster. He asked Xiao where he had heard that news. Xiao replied that his friend had told him. Tian asked for his friend's contact and insisted on hearing it from him directly. Xiao urged Tian to trust him and turn before it was too late, promising he wouldn't harm Tian. Reluctantly, Tian began turning his car around. Meanwhile, bystanders noticed the situation, and one man commented that something seemed wrong. He contacted others in a nearby car, wondering how Tian could decide to turn back alone. Another person asked what they should do. Nan replied that he was ready, and their target was approaching, so they had to stop them. Liang added they needed to capture them alive, block their escape routes, and attack from both the front and rear. He sarcastically remarked about seeing if they could grow wings and fly away that day, before asking for updates. Xiao then apologized to Tian, admitting that he had betrayed him and it was all his fault. He tearfully explained that there was nothing he could do, as some people took his father away. Tian asked him to calm down and explain who those people were and what they wanted. Xiao, crying, told Tian that they were from Tainrun and knew Tian had the antidote for the poisoning. They had coerced Xiao into luring Tian away from the farm so they could capture Han and force Tian to submit. Tian exclaimed that Han was only 6 years old and they intended to kidnap a child. Xiao replied that he didn't know and that they had threatened his father's life, leaving him with no other choice. Just then, a car blocked their way. Xiao told Tian that those people had arrived. Tian shouted at Xiao to be quiet, saying everything Xiao had asked was just to test him and find out if the farm was protected. When Xiao was playing with his phone, he was actually messaging the other party. Soon some people with machines appeared in front of Tian's house. Xiao apologized to Tian, urging him to give them the antidote, as there were too many of them and they wouldn't be able to escape. Tian replied that he was furious with Xiao and didn't want to kill him, but he couldn't believe Xiao had endangered Han. Crying, Xiao apologized again, saying he regretted it, but they had taken his father and there was no turning back. He pleaded with Tian to give them the antidote. Tian told Xiao he would deal with him later, and, unfortunately for the intruders, none of them would leave his farm alive. Saya remembered the night when he was healed, and Nan was so happy about it, saying how scared he had been. Xiao admitted that he couldn't believe he had actually survived. Nan commented that Xiao was an idiot for eating something different that caused his illness. Xiao explained that he was so hungry he couldn't stand it anymore and found an apple in the cellar that didn't seem to have any trace of contamination. Nan scolded Xiao for being so desperate and daring to eat anything from the cellar, as they were all in contact with the ground. Saio replied that they had been eating nothing but gruel for several days, so he decided to take a gamble. Otherwise, he would have starved to death sooner or later. Nan told him to stop talking nonsense and mentioned that he had borrowed some food and they had received a wave of food drops. Among them was a magical elixir that saved Xiao's life, which must have been a blessing from the gods. They couldn't bear to see Xiao suffer so much, so they saved his life. Nan reminded Xiao that many people had died from accidentally eating poisonous vegetables, and he was the only one who survived. Therefore, they must go to pay homage to their ancestral graves later to thank them for their blessings. Xiao thought that if there really was a god, such a disaster shouldn't be allowed to happen in this world. He believed the elixir had been given by someone who didn't want to reveal their identity. Then he noticed a bag of fruits and heard Nan ask if he was hungry. Xiao couldn't believe someone had given them so much food while their family had been left to starve, without even the basic necessities for survival. Nan reassured him that they had received all this food and that he was going to get something for Xiao to eat, emphasizing that Xiao was still recovering from a serious illness and needed to recover well. Suddenly, Xiao remembered something and got up to go outside. Nan asked where he was going. Xiao replied that he would be back in a while. Nan insisted that Xiao wasn't fully recovered and needed to rest. Xiao asked to be left alone and then went to someone's home and knocked on the door. The boy inside replied, telling him to stop knocking rapidly and demanded to know who was there. When Miao opened the door, he was shocked to see Xiao covered in blood. Miao asked what Xiao wanted. Sai replied that his home had been robbed and he just wanted to check the surveillance video. Miao asked what that was. Xiao showed him the camera and said it was a 360-degree unplugged wireless monitor. Miao agreed. Xiao asked to check who had beaten him up because he needed to find them. Miao agreed but told him to hurry because it was his sleep time. As Xiao went to check, he thought the camera happened to have the perfect angle for his alleyway and wondered who the person would be. Then he saw a truck and recognized its owner by the license plate. He then returned home. Nan asked what he had been doing. Xiao replied that he had found out who saved his life. Nan asked who it was. Xiao said it was Tian. He had checked the CCTV and found that Tian's arrival and departure times matched the time of Xiao's rescue. Nan said that Tian was a good person who not only gave them food, but also saved Xiao's life. Xiao then asked Nan if he had heard the news that the Tianrun group was paying a good amount of money to those who could find a solution. Nan was shocked and asked what Xiao was thinking of doing. Xiao replied that he was trying to make life a bit easier for both of them in this hellish world. He questioned how long their current food supply would last and what they would do afterward, asking if Nan still expected Tian to give them more food. Nan slapped Xiao and asked if he wanted to repay Tian with such hatred. He exclaimed how he could have given birth to such an ungrateful beast and threatened to break Xiao's legs if he dared to go to Tianrun. Xiao asked if Nan understood their current situation, saying they could only rely on themselves to survive. He insisted he was doing what he had to do to survive, and that was all. As he was thinking about how they couldn't get rid of their pursuers because they were following too closely, he saw 2 cars blocking his way. Just then, he found himself surrounded from all sides. He came out, holding Xiao tightly in his grasp. Chen called Tian, introducing himself as an affiliate of Tainrun Pharmaceutical Company. He explained that he was using a special method to get Tian to meet him, and assured Tian that he had no ulterior motives. Chen mentioned that they knew Tian had the cure for the poisoning pandemic and proposed discussing a cooperation. Tian would provide the cure, and they would contribute their efforts, making huge profits together. Tian asked what would happen if he refused. Chen replied that Tian had only 2 options. The first was to cooperate, making everyone happy and allowing them all to earn money with smiles on their faces. Tian then asked about the second option. Chen responded that they would find the cure for the disease themselves, implying they would use force if necessary. Tian replied that it was only by chance he had discovered the cure for the poisoning epidemic, and there was only 1 dose, which he had already used. Chen called Tian, introducing himself as an affiliate of Tainrun Pharmaceutical Company. He explained he had come to discuss cooperation regarding Tian's cure for the poisoning pandemic. Tian regretted they had come all this way for nothing, noting they didn't even have guns, and Xiao was of no use to them. If they had firearms, they could have simply injured Tian without the need for threats. Chen remarked that Tian seemed unmoved even in the face of danger. Chen made a call and asked if they were at the farm gate, instructing them to capture the little girl and feed her the poisonous fruits. He questioned the point of electrifying Tian's broken fence, knowing it was surrounded by insulation protection veterans. He urged Tian to understand his own value and cooperate to make money together with Tainrun. Tian's demeanor turned ominous, and he expressed his hatred for threats. Chen wondered how a mere farmer could have such a terrifying gaze. Tian warned Chen that he should be grateful they hadn't come to the farm together, or they wouldn't be alive much longer. Chen dismissed Tian's warning as nonsense, feeling confident in their numbers. Chen demanded Tian cooperate, promising he and his sister would live. Seeing Tian's reluctance to cooperate, Chen ordered his people to cut off Tian's limbs and leave him alive. Those people managed to break through the walls of Tian's farm, causing a noisy disturbance that made Han unable to enjoy her cartoons in peace. She felt an intense urge to silence them once and for all. Meanwhile, Tian found himself alone, battling enemies and hurling them away at a distance. Chen, shocked by the chaos, wondered what was happening. It was evident that the farm possessed anti-personnel weapons, necessitating the need to lure the intruders away. Observing Tian's farm from a distance, a man sensed something was amiss as rocks were being explosively dislodged. His initial suspicion of explosives was confirmed, and he decided to capture Tian alive. He realized no one had truly understood Tian's true strength. Tian himself marveled at the unexpected power boost from the radiation-resistant crops he had consumed for just a few days. His physical attributes, speed, strength, bone density, and reflexes, had all significantly improved beyond his expectations. In ancient times, one could enter the Tao through swordsmanship, but Tian chose to initiate it with a fist. A man swung a knife at Tian, but he sidestepped it, feeling he was moving closer to the Tao. "Let's create some space first," he thought, knowing his physical condition was no longer a game. He targeted Chen with his gun. Terrified, Chen regretted his oversight of not bringing a firearm, unaware Tian possessed one. However, if Chen could close the distance, the gun would become useless. He warned Tian not to provoke the powerful figure behind him, stressing the consequences. Tian acknowledged, shooting others to demonstrate Chen's value and eliminate unnecessary threats. As people fled, Tian pursued and killed them. Chen decided to hide in the woods, waiting until Tian ran out of bullets. Dodging attacks, he found refuge behind a rock, realizing Tian had ceased shooting, signaling he was likely out of ammunition, a relief for Chen. Chen remained hidden, plotting a surprise attack on Tian, hoping it would give him a chance to win. Meanwhile, Tian accessed his inventory and retrieved a pistol from the warehouse. He positioned himself above the rock, aiming at Chen. Perplexed, Chen questioned why Tian still possessed a weapon, and if he was also a martial artist. The scene shifted to Tian's house, where all intruders lay defeated. Bai appeared, having ordered the execution of the last intruder, whose head was blown off. Concerned about Tian's potential return and his perception of her actions, Bai fretted that he might view her as violent and reject her. Determined to conceal the scene before Tian returned, she hurried to dispose of the evidence outside the door. Chen, severely injured, admitted that threatening Tian with a child had been a grave mistake. He pleaded with Tian to stop tormenting him, promising to reveal everything if spared. Tian replied that letting Chen off the hook was impossible, but he offered Chen a choice: a quick, painful death, or a chance to be cured and continue suffering since Tian had plenty of bullets and time. Faced with these options, Chen agreed to answer Tian's questions. Tian first asked who was behind the attack. Chen revealed that it was Liang, the CEO of Tianrun. Tian remarked that it made sense given Liang's ruthless nature and his involvement in inflating prices. He then inquired if there was anyone else involved. Chen responded that Liang was solely responsible, keeping the matter well hidden. Even the highest-ranking executives within the company were unaware. Additionally, Chen mentioned Liang's recent disagreements with the company's vice president and his plan to use this situation to elevate his authority, impress the headquarters, and oust the VP from the Southern City branch. Tian pondered the headquarters, realizing that Tianrun Pharmaceutical, which monopolized Southern City, was just a subsidiary of a larger group. He struck Chen to wake him up and asked if Liang had reported the matter to the headquarters. Chen denied this, explaining that the other vice president had connections there, and Liang feared that escalating the issue would ruin his plans by leaking the information to that vice president. Tian thought that since the matter wasn't widespread, it would be easy to contain. He then demanded that Chen take him to Liang. Chen received a call from Liang, who asked if the mission was completed. Chen responded that they had the target under control, but the target insisted on seeing Liang and the old man before revealing anything. Liang chastised Chen, calling him useless if he couldn't handle such a small matter without his personal involvement. Apologizing, Chen explained that Tian was tight-lipped and they had lost a few men in the process. Liang agreed to meet, instructing Chen to take Tian to warehouse number 78, assuring him he would be there shortly. Chen hung up the call abruptly, angering Liang, who fumed at Chen's audacity. Liang, already at the headquarters, decided to replace Chen immediately. Leaving his office, Liang didn't know that Tian had forced Chen to say those things. Tian then tied Chen up and had Xiao change clothes with him. During the car ride, Xiao thanked Tian. Tian replied that Nan was merely an incidental acquaintance and that Xiao shouldn't get overly sentimental. Xiao apologized. Arriving at the warehouse, Xiao and the bound Chen entered. Liang, accompanied by 2 men and a tied-up Nan, awaited them. Liang asked why only they had come and where Nan's son was. Xiao explained that the messenger had been knocked out and left in the car, and Chen had a stomach ache, so he went to the restroom. Fearing Liang's impatience, Xiao had brought Nan over first. Liang scoffed, calling them a pitiful bunch. He laughed, pointing out Nan's beaten condition, and remarked that he must not have struck hard enough before. He demanded Nan speak up, promising to set him free. Nan thought it best to stay silent, knowing Liang wouldn't leave any of them alive. Nan tried to speak, but his mouth was gagged, making it impossible. Infuriated, Liang called Nan a dog and demanded to know why he was barking before kicking him. Xiao stared at Liang, trembling. Liang noticed and barked at Xiao, asking why he was staring and ordering him to bring Nan over. The other 2 men continued to kick Nan. Liang sneered, calling them worthless losers. Suddenly, Tian crashed through the roof, landing a kick on Liang. Everyone was stunned. Liang remarked that the wall wasn't easy to climb. Tian pointed his gun at the fallen Liang, causing the 2 men to freeze in fear. Tian commanded them not to move. Liang demanded to know how Tian had arrived, where Chen was, and if Chen had betrayed him. He then dared Tian to touch him. Tian questioned how someone of Liang's intelligence became the head of Tianrun, suggesting Liang had invested all his skills in being heartless. He revealed that the injured person was Chen. Liang threatened that if Tian touched him, he would have Nan killed immediately. Tian asked if he was sure, pointing out that killing Liang was more cost-effective than saving irrelevant people. Liang ordered his men to save him, but Xiao pleaded with Tian to stop. Ignoring the plea, Tian shot the 2 men, questioning Xiao's intelligence. Xiao then rushed to free his father. Xiao and Nan knelt before Tian, expressing their gratitude and apologies. Xiao apologized for not holding Nan accountable for his actions and acknowledged that apologies were inadequate, but thanked Tian nonetheless. Tian reassured them that he didn't believe in guilt by association and that Nan had not harmed him in any way. Nan blamed himself for not stopping Xiao's actions, feeling immense guilt. Tian told Xiao that constant apologies weren't necessary and suggested letting go of the idea of seeking forgiveness, as he believed Xiao didn't deserve harm. Tian assured Xiao that he wouldn't harm him unnecessarily and left the next steps up to Xiao. Xiao assured Tian that they knew nothing and could be trusted, then asked Tian how he planned to handle the situation. Tian instructed them to gather the people and stack them together, promising to bring the car. Nan asked what Tian intended to do. Tian replied that they had no choice but to clean up the evidence. After gathering the 3 bodies together, Xiao asked Nan if Tian planned to bury them. Nan nodded, pulling Chen aside and agreeing that it wasn't safe to leave them exposed in the middle of nowhere. As Nan reached out to move Chen unexpectedly attacked him with a broken piece of mirror. Nan managed to dodge the blow, surprised by Chen's agility. Xiao was shocked by the sudden violence. Chen explained that he was at a dead end and had nothing to lose by taking someone down with him. He swung the broken mirror at Nan, but Xiao intervened and took the blow himself. Nan was stunned by Xiao's sacrifice. Just then, Tian arrived in the car and struck Chen with it. Xiao screamed in pain and collapsed. Nan began to cry, admitting to Tian that Xiao was right about him being useless and not daring to be good or bad. He blamed himself for putting his father in danger due to his selfish desires. Nan accepted that Xiao deserved what happened and wished to give his life back to him, finally finding peace. He asked Tian to thank Han for him, mentioning that the candies for Han's food that night were from him, knowing they were something a child would appreciate. With his last breath, Xiao passed away. Nan was overwhelmed with grief. After a while, he and Tian set fire to the warehouse and left the scene. The scene shifted to Ren in her office, calmly sipping tea as someone rushed in, clearly agitated. She instructed them to calm down and explained slowly. After composing themselves, the person informed Ren that something significant had occurred. Ren asked what had happened, and they hesitantly revealed that Liang had died. Ren swiftly examined the bodies and asked the doctor if they had confirmed their identities. The doctor confirmed through DNA extracted from dental pulp that the bodies were indeed Liang and Chen. However, the genetic database had no matches for the other bodies, and no missing persons reports matched them. Due to insufficient police resources, further investigation to confirm their identities was not possible. Ren dismissed the importance of confirming identities and instead inquired whether the deaths were accidental or deliberate. The doctor determined they were murders. Several bodies had bullet fragments, indicating they were shot before being stacked and set on fire in a car. Some showed signs of torture. Inspecting one of the bodies, Ren concluded that whoever had done this was dealing with a ruthless character. She pondered whether the attack targeted Liang personally or Tianrun Corporation. If the former, she planned to celebrate with 2 bottles of red wine that night. If the latter, these people were now her enemies. Tian purchased a small bomb and asked Nan if he truly wanted to seek revenge. Nan agreed, declaring he was willing to risk his life for it. Tian then handed the bomb to Nan, explaining that he had taken care of the traces that could be handled, but couldn't guarantee that Tianrun wouldn't find any clues pointing to him. This was a reminder not to let what happened to Xiao occur again. Nan reassured Tian, promising to ensure the bomb exploded as intended without worry. Tian then confided all the secrets to Nan and returned home with him, calling Han to ask what she was doing there. Nan was bewildered to see Han unfazed by everything, including a robot dog in the house. Outside, Han had arranged a crane and a small sand mound to conceal the bodies. She realized Tian and Nan had returned, denying any wrongdoing and claiming she was only playing a digging game and hadn't set anything off. Tian reprimanded her, having seen everything she had done, prompting her to admit she lied because she feared he would hate her if he discovered her violent actions, worrying he might not want her anymore. He asked how he could ever not want her. She explained that it was because she had killed people. Nan wondered if that was the reason. Tian reassured Han, telling her that no matter what mistakes she had made, he would stand by her side and bear them together. He emphasized that from beginning to end, she was the most important person in his family, and he was delighted that she knew how to protect herself. He encouraged her to just be herself and assured her that he would guide her, so she shouldn't feel burdened. He praised her for dealing with those who had malicious intentions and preventing them from harming others. Han then declared that she would retaliate against those who tried to bully Tian. Nan reflected that the world was changing too quickly, and he needed to adapt. Han then confided everything to Tian, who confirmed if she was saying that she saw those people wearing red and that this made her hate them. She ordered Bai to eliminate them, and Bai agreed, mentioning how those individuals had knocked down the gate and disturbed her while watching cartoons, a color she found unsettling. Tian asked if others also had colors. Han confirmed, describing Tian with a calming blue, He with an approachable green, and Xiao also associated with the unsettling red color. She mentioned that Nan's color was gray with a hint of green, and she had also noticed that some passers-by were gray too. Tian wondered what the people emitting the red color had in common, suspecting they all harbored ill intentions towards Han. He asked if, besides seeing different colors, she had noticed any words or letters around them. He wondered if Han was also a player. She denied seeing any words or letters. He asked when she started seeing colors on people. She replied it had been about a week ago. Tian speculated that her ability had emerged only after the start of the destruction season, confirming that Han hadn't seen the system and thus wasn't a player. Thinking about this, He pinched her cheeks, a habit of his when contemplating a problem. Tian believed it was likely an evolution after eating radiation-resistant vegetables. He smiled, and she jokingly commented on how scary he could be. He expressed his happiness. Tian considered that if that were the case, the crops provided by the food system didn't have the same side effects as the radiative crops, but the likelihood of mutation was higher. They had both eaten radiation-resistant food for only a few days, yet their physical functions had improved significantly. Han had also evolved the ability to perceive others' emotions, akin to a proximity program or humanoid reconnaissance device. Tian named his ability the Eye of Truth and dubbed Han's ability the Eye of Good and Evil. He expressed admiration for her ability and noted its usefulness to him. When she asked if she would be able to help him in the future, he agreed, affirming that if she saw someone emitting red color in the future, she should inform him as she was his strongest assistant. As he gently touched her, she became happy. He then asked if she was hungry and offered to cook for her. Later, he prepared all the food and the three of them sat down together to eat. Tian told Han that from now on, Nan would also live with them and help with the farm work. Nan mentioned he didn't fully understand the situation, but would do as Tian instructed. Han was delighted to hear this and asked where Nan would live. Nan replied that he would build a thatched hut near the gate to live in and keep watch over it. Han then asked what would happen to Xiao now that Nan was living with them. Nan explained that Xiao had gone to another world to atone for his sins. Han remarked that it seemed those who emitted red light and wanted to bully Tian wouldn't live long. She vowed that anyone who dared to bully Tian or He would face Bai's retaliation. Tian praised Han for her intelligence and suggested she focus on her meal. Nan thought that things couldn't get any more intense than they were now. Furthermore, his hands were already stained with blood, but now he didn't have to worry. As long as he could help his son get revenge, he was willing to be Tian's watchdog. The scene shifts to a man watching a press conference. A speaker announced that it was the 15th day after the catastrophe, with a cumulative death toll of 38.6 million on Blue Star and 4.7 million in the Yanhuang Federation. The federal government was actively transferring grain reserves, and soilless cultivation technology would soon be scaled up for production. He urged everyone not to panic. The man's son approached and asked what he could do. The man inquired if he had read Ren's report. The boy confirmed and mentioned that Liang was dead. The man remarked about Tian being a good earner and lamented his death, noting that the mutation process had accelerated. He mentioned that the military police headquarters had captured a level 5 mutated beast in the mountains on the southern border. Jing, his son, was surprised to hear this and asked how a level 5 mutant beast could have evolved when the highest level they could research now was only level 3, or the result of his artificial catalysts. In the deep forest, with no human intervention to clear it, radioactive vegetation thrived. Even the lowest level species cannibalized each other, accelerating mutation intensity. The father remarked that their current manufacturing technology was vulnerable to unknown natural evolution. He instructed King to take over the lab there, and Ren had discovered that Liang's secret experiments had utilized many intriguing technologies. They planned to combine these discoveries with their current resources and ensure the prompt extraction of the virus. Jing agreed with the plan. Ren sat in her office, pondering that the records from 2 days prior had appeared entirely routine, suggesting that the cause of his death lay within that narrow window. However, the surveillance footage from those crucial days had been deleted by Liang, leaving them bereft of clues. Dwelling on this seemed futile for now. They needed to decide on the location of the new research institute, and Ren still had to welcome the incoming leader.